My brothers and sisters, a lot of people don't give the importance to reading the biography of the great Imams of Islam. Wallahi, reading their biography will change your life. If you look at the biography of the Salaf, you will know your own deficiencies and where you're falling short from where these big giant men were like. Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, look what he said. The story of the Imams of Islam, their stories and what happened to them and what they did. And sitting with the people of knowledge is more beloved to me than what? A lot of fiqh. Because that's the mannerism and the etiquettes of those previous Imams. Ibrahim al-Nakha'i said, we used to come to Masruq. We used to just come to him and we would sit down and we just watch how he walks, how he talks, how he responds. We sit there and that's what we would do. We literally travel just to sit with him so we can benefit that from him. Do you guys know Hasan al-Basri? Hasan al-Basri was said about him, the Habib mentions, he said, Hasan al-Basri was like a man, he went to the Akhirah. He looked at Jannah, Nar, Malaika, what it's like, and he came back to tell the people about it, the way he used to talk. The Habib even says, his words would resemble the words of the prophets. And that would only happen because he lived by the words of the Prophet, memorized it, studied it. He just started to become like it. My brothers, what I'm trying to say to you here is that there is not anything left when it comes to the biography of the scholars except it's been written, one way or another. And I'll tell you 3 reasons alone, reading the biography of the pious people, the righteous people. Number 1, al-himmah al-aliyah, high aspiration comes from it. High aspiration. The story of the pious people, it will plant in your heart. It plants in the person's nafs. This burning fire within you comes out towards good, of course. And it will increase your iman. And as you all know, the poet said, إِذَا مَرِضْنَا تَدَاوَيْنَا بِذِكْرِكُمُ وَنَتْرُكُ الذِّكْرَ أَحْيَانًا فَنَنْتَكِسُ. يعني إِذَا مَرِضْنَا, it means مرض القلب. If we become a little bit sick, يعني we drop, we dip a little bit. إِذَا مَرِضْنَا, we become مرض النفس. يعني we جهل and غرور and kibr and whatever it may be enters our heart. إِذَا مَرِضْنَا تداوينا بذكركم, we cure ourselves with your remembrance, Ahlul Ilm. And we look at these humble Imams, noble, righteous, hard-working. وَنَتْرُكُ الذِّكْرَ أَحْيَانًا, and sometimes we might leave off their reading their biography, and what happens to us? فَنَنْتَكِسُ, we fall back on our heels. And we go back towards the bad. Does that make sense, brothers? So reading the Imams before, that's what it does for you. You grow from it. Sometimes, I promise you cry, sometimes you will laugh. And it's an amazing feeling to have when you read the Imams of the Salaf. And you know what it does for you as well? And it's still the first point. What you read in the Qur'an, you literally see it being implemented by people. So it shows you the practicality of these nusus. That it's not just a theory in the air. It's actually practical. It can be done. Some of the Salaf, they used to say, مَا نَحْنُ فِي مَنْ مَضَى, means what are we compared to those who preceded us? He said, what are we فِي مَنْ مَضَى, compared to those who came before us? This was a statement of Abu Amr ibn al-Ala rahimahullah, وَنَئِمَّةُ الْقُرَّاءِ الْكِبَارِ, Imam fil lugha, and Imam, one of the Qurra al-Kibar. He said, مَا نَحْنُ فِي مَنْ مَضَى, what are we compared to those who preceded us? He said, إِلَّا كَبَقْلٍ, we are like a mushroom under a big tree. مَا نَحْنُ فِي مَنْ مَضَى إِلَّا كَبَقْلٍ في أصول نخل طوال, a tree that its branches are high in the air. That's how we are, small and they're big. Some of the Salaf actually even said, إِذَا ذُكِرَ السَّلَفُ افْتَضَحْنَا, if the Salaf is mentioned, we're exposed. We get exposed. You'll really know us like we're nothing. It exposes you for what you really are. Sah? Do you agree? That's what it does to us. Abdullah ibn Mubarak said this, rahimahullah. He said, don't mention our names next to these people's names. لا تعرضن لذكرنا مع ذكرهم. Don't mention Abdullah Mubarak with the other Imams he's trying to say from the Salaf. He's an Imam himself, Abdullah Mubarak. 1 year he'll do jihad fi sabilillah, and 1 year he's gone Hajj. Abid Khurasan, they used to call him. So the first thing I want to say is it increases your iman, increases your aspiration. That's why part of your life is reading the Salaf. Abu Hanifa rahimahullah said, reading the biography of the pious predecessors is more beloved to me than having a lot of fiqh, studying fiqh issues. Reading the biography of the Salaf is more beloved to me. The Imams, what they were like. Why? Because it puts theory into practice for you. It shows you how it's done. Very important, brothers. That's why I say, brothers, books like Sifatul Safwa, Siyar A'lam al-Nubala, Hilyatul Awliya wa Tabaqatul Asfiya, Al-Bidayah wa Nihaya. These books, we're going to talk about more kutub, inshallah ta'ala, on the seerah of the ulama. It has to be in your library. Not only is it in your library, but you read it. There's a kitab, it's actually translated now, walillahi alhamdu wal minna, in the English language. And it is Ibn al-Jawzi rahimahullah authored it. he talks about the life of Imam al-Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah. Do you guys know Hasan al-Basri? Hasan al-Basri was said about him, the Dhahabi mentions in his Sirah A'lam Nubala, he said, Hasan al-Basri was like a man ذهب إلى الآخرة. He went to the Akhirah. فعاينها, he looked at Jannah, Nar, Malaika, what it's like, Arasat Yawm al-Qiyamah, and he came back to tell the people about it, the way he used to talk. Dhahabi even says, كان كلامه يشبه كلام الأنبياء. His words would resemble the words of the prophets. And that would only happen because he lived by the words of the Prophet, memorized it, studied it. He just started to become like it. You see somebody in a different country, he loves this rapper, he loves listening to him, he dresses like him, acts like him. He even starts talking like, he sounds like him. The A'immah were like that when it came to the Prophet ﷺ. So Al-Imam Ibn al-Jawzi authored that kitab on the life of Hasan al-Basri, Adabuhu, Hayatuhu, and he even mentions the kalam of Hasan al-Basri. One of the statements that he said, Wallahi, it shows you the power of his words and how deep it was. He said, وَإِن طَقْطَقَتْ بِهِمُ الْبِغَالِ وَهَمْلَجَتْ بِهِمُ الْبَرَاذِينَ فَإِنَّ ذُلَّ الْمَعْصِيَةِ لَا تُفَارِقُ وُجُوهَهُمْ أَبَى اللَّهِ إِلَّا أَن يُذِلَّ مَنْ عَصَاهُ. That's exactly our situation today. That humiliation, my brothers, of sins, its effects are seen in your face the daytime. Humiliated in daytime, what you do at nighttime. And the good that you do the daytime, you'll be invited to worship Allah at nighttime. Qiyamul Layl. Allah will say, come talk to me. I'll talk to you. You're honored to have that relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What you do daytime. And what you do nighttime, Allah will prevent you from rizq the daytime. The second benefit that you take, my brothers and sisters, is salahul qalb. It perfects your heart. The qisas al-salihin, siyarul ulama, the anbiya, number one. What does it do? Salahul qalb. Your qalb to be clean. And that's something, that's a maqsad min maqasid al-sharia, is it not? ألا وإن في الجسد مضغة إذا صلحت صلح الجسد كله وإذا فسدت فسد الجسد كله ألا وهي القلب. There's an organ inside the human body. That organ, if it's upright and it's steadfast and it is as it should be, the entire body is going to follow through. And if that organ is corrupt and destroyed, the entire body is also going to be destroyed. And that is what? What organ is that? The heart. The heart controls. That's what Abu Hurairah said, athar, which is mawquf. Abu Hurairah said, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, the qalb is the king, it's the ruler. If it's upright, the entire body is going to be upright. If it's corrupt, the entire body is going to be corrupt. In order to perfect your heart, one of the things that you need to do is to read the stories of the righteous people. And Allah did that for Nabiullah Muhammad. نَحْنُ نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ أَحْسَنَ الْقَصَصِ بِمَا أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ. We're going to tell you a story of Muhammad. And Allah told him the story of Nabiullah Yusuf. Why did Allah tell him? لِنُثَبِّتَ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ وَرَتَّلْنَاهُ تَرْتِيلًا. To strengthen your heart. لقد كان في قصصهم عبرة لأولي الألباب ما كان حديثا يفترى. In their story is lessons for you. It's not just a mere story where you sit back and you drink a coffee and tea and say, wow, it was amazing, that was shocking. Lessons, brothers. So the Prophet was strengthened with what? Stories from the previous nations and what happened to them and how they were. And when they disobeyed Allah, how they were dealt with. And etc. Does that make sense, brothers? And then for you, your heart to be perfected, you need the story of the righteous people. Again, the third benefit that it gives you, inshallah ta'ala, the person will know qadara nafsihi. You'll start to really know what you're like. It will put you in your place. You will know your reality. And that's what I mentioned before when it was said, إِذَا ذُكِرَ السَّلَفُ افْتَضَحْنَا. When the Salaf are mentioned, we're exposed. Hamdun al-Qassar, this kalam, you can get it in the kitab of Ibn al-Jawzi, Sifatul Safwa. He said, if you look at the biography of the Salaf, you will know where you're falling short. And you'll also know where you're not coming through. You'll know. If you look at the biography of the Salaf, you will know your own deficiencies and where you're falling short from where these big giant men were like. Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, look what he said. The story of the Imams of al-Islam, their stories and what happened to them and what they did. And sitting with the people of knowledge is more beloved to me than what? A lot of fiqh. Because that's the mannerism and the etiquettes of those previous Imams. Ibrahim al-Nakha'i said, we used to come to Masruq. We used to just come to him and we would sit down and we just watch how he walks, how he talks, how he responds. We sit there and that's what we would do. We literally travel just to sit with him so we can benefit that from him. Sharik ibn Nahik al-Khawlani rahimahullah, he said, Abu Darda said to me, do you want to know somebody's fiqh, understanding of the religion? It's all based on the way he walks, the way he enters places, the way he carries himself. All of that is his fiqh. And because of that, wallahi brothers, the Islamic libraries are full of books just on biographies. Let me give you guys some books that you guys can hear just how much books there are. Books that are just written on one person. So that's the first type. Just on one person, his life and his and all of the things about him. Let's do the 4 Imams. I can do a lot, but I'm just going to stick to the 4 Imams. And Imam Abu Hanifa, for example, You have Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, Makki. He authored a kitab on the manaqib of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, the virtues and the biography of Imam Abu Hanifa. Is that just it? No. As-Saymari, he authored a kitab on the manaqib of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. And Imam al-Dhahabi authored a kitab on the manaqib of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. All three of them on the manaqib of Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. Let's go to Imam Malik rahimahullah. Imam Malik, Isa ibn Mas'ud al-Zawawi rahimahullah, he has a kitab on the manaqib of Imam Malik rahimahullah. His name is Isa ibn Mas'ud al-Zawawi. He's authored a kitab on the manaqib. Manaqib is the virtue. And it's not just a virtue here. It's also about who his life, his tarjama, who is he, what the scholars said about him, and etc. And Imam al-Shafi'i, third Imam. And Imam al-Shafi'i, you have many scholars that have written books on his biography. You have Fakhruddin al-Razi. You have al-Imam al-Bayhaqi rahimahullah. You have Imam ibn Kathir rahimahullah. All of them are writing about the manaqib of Imam al-Shafi'i. Some of these books I'm mentioning are volumes. Not a volume, volumes. Then you have an Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala. From the scholars that authored a kitab on his life is Ibn al-Jawzi rahimahullah. So these are books that are restricted to the life of one particular person, volumes. Then you have in there the books that have been written by Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah. A kitab called Al-Uqud Ad-Durriyah fi Ba'd Manaqib Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. You have the kitab written by the life of Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, by his student Shamsuddin al-Sakhawi rahimahullah ta'ala. Authored a kitab on his teacher. I actually believe it's one of the best books that have ever been written on the biography of a person. All of those books I'm mentioning. That's one type, which is a tarajim al-mufrada. Then you have books that are called at-tarajum fil madhab. So it's not just on one particular person, it's actually the biography of the imams of a madhab. So for example, you look at the imams of the Hanafis, you have a kitab called Al-Fara'id Al-Bahiyya fi Tarajum Al-Hanafiyya by Al-Qurashi rahimahullah. You have the Malikiyya, for example, the kitab Shajaratun Nur Al-Zakiyya fi Tarajum Al-Malikiyya, written by Muhammad ibn Qasim Al-Makhluf rahimahullah. You have Subki's طبقات الشافعية. You have طبقات الحنابلة للقاضي أبو يعلى, and then the Deen on it by Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali rahimahullah, where he added the other remaining. So you have the طبقات الحنابلة by القاضي أبو يعلى and the Deen of Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali. As I mentioned before, Al-Qurashi is one, you're going to find what? The Hanafiyya. Then the Malikiyya, you're going to find the Imams of the Maliki madhab. I want to know Fulan, his biography. He's a Maliki, is he not? Yeah, let me go. You find it in there. Shafi'iyya, طبقات الشافعية by Subki. You go there, you find the Fuqaha Shafi'iyya in there. You go to طبقات الحنابلة by Ibn Abi Ya'la, you find Hanabila in there. And then because he died, rahimahullah, after that still came more Hanabila, Ibn Rajab came and added more on there. So this is the Imams of the madhab. Each one his biography and what he is and who he was. Guess what then? Scholars went back and they authored Tarajum fi Qutrin Mu'ayyan. They wrote biographies on a particular land. That entire land, the ulama of that land. You have Khatib al-Baghdadi who authored a kitab called Tarikh Madinat Salam, which is well known as Tarikh Baghdad, Tarikh Madinat Salam, by who? By Khatib al-Baghdadi rahimahullah. In there he talks about ulama al-Baghdad, all the ulama that were in Baghdad, their biography and who they were and the land and all of that. Then you have the kitab by Ibn Asakir rahimahullah, Tarikh Dimashq. He's not talking about one particular person or one particular madhab. No, he's talking about the ulama of Dimashq. Then you have the kitab Bughiyatul Talab في تاريخ الحلب, the ulama of Halab that were there. Kamaluddin ibn al-Adim rahimahullah authored it. Then you have the ulama of a particular science within the Deen. A particular science, the ulama who specialize in that science, their biographies. Like those who specialize in the qira'at. Al-Dhahabi wrote a kitab called Ma'rifatul Qurra al-Kibar, the Qurra, all of their biographies that you need to know. Tabaqat al-Mufassirin, the scholars who are known as the Mufassirin. You have Ad-Dawudi rahimahullah and Jalaluddin al-Suyuti rahimahullah, Tabaqat al-Mufassirin. You have the Tabaqat al-Muhaddithin, the scholars of Hadith and specialize in Hadith, by Ibn Abdul Hadi al-Dimashqi al-Salihi Abu Abdullah. His full name is Muhammad ibn Ahmad ibn Abdul Hadi. You also have the scholars of Hadith who not were just scholars but Huffaz. Dhahabi authored the kitab called what? Tadhkiratul Huffaz, where he mentions the Huffaz of Hadith who qualified to be called Huffaz. He authored it rahimahullah. And then guess what? When he finished it, there's more that came after that. Ibn Fahdin came and he done a Deen on it. Then guess what? Al-Imam Abdul Ghani ibn Abdul Wahid al-Maqdisi rahimahullah came and he said, guess what? I want to look at the 6 scholars of Kutub al-Hadith, 6 scholars of Kutub al-Hadith, Bukhari, Muslim, Abi Dawud, Tirmidhi, Ibn Majah, Nasa'i. All of their narrators that they narrated from in any of their works, I want their biographies. Whether it's in their books, in their Sunnah or their Jami', or whether it's outside. I'm going to go through each one. Abdul Ghani ibn Abdul Wahid al-Maqdisi, he wrote his kitab called Al-Kamil fi ma'rifati al-Rijal. It's called Al-Kamal, sorry, fi ma'rifati al-Rijal. That kitab, Abu al-Hajjaj al-Mizzi came, the friend and the colleague of Ibn Taymiyyah. Abu al-Hajjaj al-Mizzi said, listen, this book is too big, let me summarize it. He called it Tahdhib al-Kamal, and he organized it and maybe even added extra things on there. So he authored his Tahdhib al-Kamal. Ibn Hajar came and said, you know what, I can even summarize it more. So he called it Tahdhib al-Tahdhib. And then Ibn Hajar said, you know what, I can actually do more of a tahdhib on my own one. So he called it Taqrib al-Tahdhib. Yani I want to bring it closer. Also, Ibn Dhahabi went and he said, you know what, I'm going to look at the people who are weak in hadith and their biographies, and the reason why they're weakened and who weakened them. So he authored his kitab Mizanul I'tidal. When he finished writing it and he died, rahimahullah ta'ala, Ibn Hajar came and read it and he said, look, I can do work on this. And he authored his kitab Lisanul Mizan. He corrected him, he disagreed with him, he did what Ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala. As you know, Ibn Hajar drank Zamzam water to be like Imam al-Dhahabi. He went to the Kaaba, drank Zamzam water, and he said, oh Allah, I ask you to make me, when it comes to the narrators, like you did to Imam al-Dhahabi. Later when he grew old, he said, I just wish I asked Allah to make me better than him. وَمَا كَانَ عَطَاءُ رَبِّكَ مَحْظُورًا. The giving of your Lord is not restricted. Why restrict it to yourself to a particular person? You can be better, right? And then you have the kitab Al-Jarh wa Ta'dil by Ibn Abi Hatim, where he now talks about those who are praised and those who are criticized. So you go there and you read that books. My brothers, what I'm trying to say to you here is that there is not anything left when it comes to the biography of the scholars except it's been written, one way or another. Then you have the kitab finally by Imam al-Dhahabi, where he called it Diwan al-Du'afa wal-Matrukin. Here he comes back and guess what he does? He wrote an entire Diwan, where every person who's been who's weakened. So it's called Diwan al-Du'afa wal-Matrukina wal-Majhulina. Those who've been hadith has been left. Those who are ambiguous and unknown. Even the unknown people, he listed them for you. And those who are also, mashallah, reliable. He put all together in that book of his, rahimahullah, Imam al-Dhahabi. And then he went back and he said, you know what? I feel like I haven't given justice to this. Let me write Islamic history. And he wrote his famous book, Tariq al-Islam. When he finished writing that, he said, listen, I need to go back again. I now need to focus on the biography of the pious people. And I will also add the criminals in there as well. So he called it Sir A'lam al-Nubala. Or a few years after him, a bit after him came Al-Imam Ibn Kathir rahimahullah. They met each other, but after that he authored it. He said, you know what, I'm going to do something that Dhahabi didn't do, which is what? I'm going to start from the beginning and I'm going to bring it to the end. I'm going to start from the day Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala mentioned to the pen right. I'm going to start from there. And I'm going to carry on until the last person goes to Jannah. So he wrote the kitab, he authored the kitab Al-Bidayatu wal-Nihaya. He called it the beginning and the end. In there, he has said, every year he mentions what happened in that year. That year, you look at it, all the events that took place in that year, what happened, the story, the details, he'll tell to you, rahimahullah ta'ala. Now, what does it need? A dail. It needs somebody to come and say, you left it off there, yeah? And drive it to this day, today. And then somebody comes after and carries it on until the day of judgment. It can be carried on. The point is, my brothers and sisters, books have all been written.